Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominion, gazing at the small blue planet that hung before them like a vulnerable jewel. His four arms crossed in satisfaction as he reviewed the intelligence. Reports on his holographic display. "Primitive chemical propulsion," he sneered, his translator rendering his clicks and hisses into standard galactic. "Barely capable of reaching their own moon. These humans still use projectile weapons and burn fossil fuels." His senior officers chittered in agreement, their carapaces gleaming under the bridge lights. The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 200 warships, each equipped with plasma cannons capable of glassing continents and shield generators that could deflect asteroid impacts. They had conquered 47 star systems using this exact formation. Overwhelming technological superiority, followed by swift subjugation. "Shall we broadcast the standard surrender demand, Admiral?" asked Commander Zethal, her mandibles clicking nervously. Something about this system felt different, though she couldn't articulate why. "No need," Kethvar replied dismissively. "A demonstration of our power will suffice. Target their largest population centers. A few orbital bombardments should—" "Admiral!" The communications officer's voice cracked with urgency. "Multiple contacts emerging from the planet's surface. Thousands of them." Kethavar's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. Tiny dots were rising from Earth like an angry swarm, each no larger than a fighter craft. "Escape pods," he mused. "Are they evacuating already?" The tactical officer, a young Zephyrian named Hextar, studied his readings with growing confusion. "Sir, these objects, they're not fleeing. They're approaching our fleet, and their numbers are unprecedented." "How many?" Kethvar demanded. 50,000 and counting, sir. They're small, fast, and—" Hextar paused, his voice filled with disbelief. "They appear to be unmanned." Kethvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Unmanned. What manner of crude automation could these primitives possess? They probably can't even maintain basic flight patterns. Ignore them and proceed with the bombardment." But Commander Zithal was studying the tactical display more carefully. The approaching swarm wasn't chaotic at all. It moved with a precision that made her nervous system tingle with unease. The drones, for that's clearly what they were, formed complex three-dimensional patterns constantly shifting and adapting as they approached. "Admiral," she ventured, "perhaps we should observe their capabilities before—" "Silence," Kethvar snapped. "No primitive drone technology could possibly threaten ships of the hegemony. Activate point defense systems as a precaution, but maintain course for planetary bombardment." The first wave of human drones reached the outer perimeter of the Zephyrian fleet. They were sleek, angular craft about the size of atmospheric fighters, but they moved with an intelligence that belied their simple appearance. Instead of attacking directly, they began circling the larger ships, their sensors probing and analyzing. "Sir," Hextar reported, his voice tight with growing concern, "these drones are scanning our ships. They're mapping our shield frequencies, weapon emplacements, and—" "Admiral, they're learning our defensive patterns in real time." Kethvar's confidence wavered slightly. "Impossible. No artificial intelligence could process tactical data that quickly." He was wrong. The human drones weren't controlled by a single AI, but by a distributed network of quantum computers back on Earth. Each one linked to thousands of others in a vast neural network that could process millions of calculations per second. Every drone that completed a scan transmitted its data back to the network, which instantly updated the tactical parameters for every other drone in the swarm. The second wave arrived, and this time they weren't just observing. moving like a school of predatory fish. They began targeting specific points on the Zephyrian ships, not the heavily armored sections, but the vulnerable sensor arrays, communication relays, and point defense turrets. "They're taking out our defensive systems," Commander Zithal shouted over the alarms now blaring throughout the ship. "How did they know exactly where to strike?" The answer was terrifyingly simple. The humans had been watching. For decades, they had observed every Zephyrian military action through deep space telescopes and captured transmissions. They had studied the aliens' tactics, ship designs, and battle formations. When the invasion fleet arrived, humanity was ready. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as his mighty warships were systematically dismantled by what he had dismissed as primitive technology. The human drones attacked in perfect coordination, each one executing maneuvers that would have killed any biological pilot. They could accelerate at forces that would turn organic matter to paste, change direction with impossible precision, and sacrifice themselves without hesitation if it meant achieving their objective. "The Crimson Talon is reporting complete communications." "Failure," Hextar announced, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "The Iron Mandible has lost all point defense systems. Sir, they're not trying to destroy our ships. They're systematically disabling them." Kethvar realized with dawning terror that the humans weren't interested in a quick victory. They were studying his fleet, learning from every engagement, preparing for something larger. Each disabled ship became a laboratory for understanding. "Zephyrian technology! Admiral!" Zithal's scream cut through his thoughts. "Massive energy signature from the planet's surface." On the main screen, Earth's surface began to glow. Not with the fire of destruction, but with the cold light of technology activating on a planetary scale. Thousands of electromagnetic launchers, hidden beneath the planet's surface, were powering up simultaneously. "What are they doing?" Kethvar whispered. His question was answered as the first salvo launched. Not more drones this time, but kinetic projectiles, simple chunks of metal accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. The Zephyrian shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and slow-moving projectiles, were useless against hypervelocity impacts. The Iron Mandible was the first to die, its hull cracking like an eggshell as a tungsten rod traveling at 30% light speed punched through its center. The explosion lit up the void, and Kethvar felt his certainty crumble along with his ship. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice cracking. "All ships, emergency jump protocols." But the human drones had anticipated this too. They had systematically targeted the jump drive cooling systems on each ship, forcing the Zephyrians to wait precious minutes before their FTL drives could activate. Minutes they didn't have. As the Stellar Dominion finally managed its emergency jump, Admiral Kethvar looked back at the blue planet that had just humiliated the greatest fleet in Zephyrian history. Of his 200 warships, only 37 had escaped, and most of those were heavily damaged. In the aftermath, as reports filtered back to the hegemony, military analysts struggled to understand what had happened. How had a species that still used wheeled vehicles and chemical rockets defeated their most advanced fleet? The answer lay in humanity's greatest strength, not their technology, but their adaptability and collective intelligence. They had taken existing technologies, artificial intelligence, kinetic weapons, and autonomous systems, and combined them in ways no other species had conceived. They fought not as individuals seeking glory, but as a unified organism with a single purpose: survival. The Zephyrian hegemony never attempted another invasion of Earth. The 47 conquered systems suddenly found themselves facing human, diplomatic envoys, envoys backed by the implied threat of drone swarms that could appear anywhere, anytime. Admiral Kethvar spent his remaining years studying the battle, trying to understand how his technologically superior force had been so completely outmaneuvered by what he had dismissed as primitives. His final report to the hegemony contained a single, chilling conclusion. We may have underestimated their technology, but we catastrophically underestimated their intelligence. The humans don't just adapt to survive, they adapt to win.